Good morning. It's good to be back with you after being out of pocket for a little bit with our camp meeting in Salem. I always love doing camp meeting. For those of you that aren't familiar with camp meeting, I always describe camp meeting as a camp meeting is a lot like the Neshoba County Fair. My joke is always camp meeting is the Neshoba County Fair with Jesus, and the Neshoba County Fair is camp meeting without Jesus. So people come in from all over. They stay in there at the fair. They're called cabins. At camp meeting, they're called tents because back in the olden days, they would have tents there where the people they'd stay in tents. Now they have these wooden structures that ring the tabernacle where we have service. We have two services a day, and then there's also a morning Bible study that I was the guest evangelist, so the guest evangelist doesn't do that one, but it's a lot of fun. I love I've done most everyone on the state of Mississippi, the Methodist ones. I have friends at all of them, and it's a great thing. So if you have a camp meeting nearby, there's Felders out from Macomb and Brookhaven. There's Salem out from Lucedale. New Prospect will be soon. That's in Van Cleve. You have Palmer's Creek on the other side of the river down there in the coast. You got South Union up in Webster County, I believe it is. You got Shiloh out in Rankin. You got there's an old Oxford one they talk about. I haven't been to that one yet, but I've been told I'm on the list. And there's I think Tabernacle is the one outside of Columbus, and it's more of an Alabama. It's in Alabama, but it's really kind of fed by Columbus. So anyway, if you're anywhere near a camp meeting, you ought to go. It's good preaching, good fellowship, good food. So I love being there. I love preaching them, but it's good to be back. So we're going to read the story of Lazarus, of Jesus getting to Lazarus' tomb and Lazarus being raised from the dead today. So let's read. We're going to read 17 through 40, 44. I really wanted to read all this as one section. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, some 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and to Mary to console them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know now, but even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection of the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world. When she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, the teacher is here and is calling for you. When she heard it, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, though still at the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw Mary get up quickly and go out. They followed her because they thought she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in his spirit and deeply moved. He said, where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind have kept this man from dying? Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, there's already a stench because he has been dead for 4 days. Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. And Jesus looked upward and said, Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me. When he said this, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth and his face wrapped in cloth. Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. So we see Jesus raise Lazarus from the dead, and there's so many great things in this passage. We see Jesus tell Martha that he is the resurrection. I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, yet shall they live. So, and Martha says, yes, you are the Messiah. You will raise the dead. But Jesus was not just talking about being the resurrection at the end of the age. He was not just talking about being the resurrection when our life draws to a close. He was saying he's the resurrection now, and that in him we find new life now. He is the resurrection. So, powerful passage there. We see Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. I think it was C.S. Lewis says that Lazarus was the first Christian martyr because he was in heaven and he was brought back to life only to die again. So he died for Jesus because Jesus brought him back to life. Um, but we see the significance that unbind him. He is bound up by death, and Jesus says, "Free him from death. He is no longer dead." He raised Lazarus from the dead. That death has no power over him. He says to the crowd and to Mary and to Martha, he says, "I don't say this for my benefit because I know the Father hears me, but I say this for yours so that you know the Father hears me. Lazarus, come forth." So he demonstrated that for their benefit so that they could see that Jesus was who he says he was. But I'm always taken aback by verse 35, 11:35. If you grew up in a church that did Bible drill, or grew up in a church we had to memorize the Bible, a Bible verse, you always wanted to memorize John 11:35 because in the old King James it says Jesus wept. Uh, um, Here mine says Jesus began to weep. So that's a little more than Jesus wept. We got four words instead of two. That is the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. I love that concept because remember what I said a couple weeks back when we talked about this? How he got there late on time. I mean, he got there late on purpose. Jesus came to Lazarus' home late for the express purpose of raising him from the dead. We talked earlier in the chapter how he chose to stay later. He stayed later than he had to. The place they were going to was not a far journey. Jesus came late on purpose to raise him from the dead. That was the purpose of this story, was so that everyone could see that he was who he says he was. He did this to show his power, to show the power of his Father. He was late on purpose. He knew at the end of the day, Lazarus was going to be raised. He knew it. He knew it. Yet when confronted with the reality of death, when confronted with the reality of Mary and Martha's tears, the tears of the bystanders, confronted with the reality that his friend was dead, Scripture tells us that Jesus wept. He wept. He knew that death was going to be defeated. But when confronted with the reality of death, Jesus wept. We know that Jesus is going to raise us. We know our dearly departed, who we love. I know my mama, who died this year. I know I'll see her again. I have no doubt about it. She loved Jesus. I'm not worried. I'll see her again. I'll see my pastor mentor friends who have passed. I will. I'll see them. I will say I have no doubt about that I will see them again. None. No doubt about that. Life wins. We're people of resurrection. But when confronted with the reality of death, we weep. And that's okay. Because we serve a God who, through Jesus Christ, when confronted with that reality, wept. He wept at the tomb of his friend. He wept. We weep. In our grief, in our loss, in our hurt, in our pain, we weep. And it's okay. And what a comfort to know that we serve a God who is not distant to our pain, but a God who walks with us through our pain, a God who understands our pain, a God who has himself wept at the tomb of his beloved friend. Jesus wept. Through Jesus, the Father experienced grief and pain and loss. God is not distant to our pain. God is with us in our pain. And in fact, through his grace, God can even redeem our pain. Jesus wept. He honors our tears. He cries with us. He holds our hand. He is always close to the brokenhearted. Jesus wept. May we be comforted by the comfort of our God. It's good to be back with you. We'll pick up tomorrow with verse 45 of John chapter 10. Have a great day.